I had no idea my life was about to flip upside down that night. It was a regular Tuesday, just another evening with my wife, Tracy. We were in the kitchen making dinner, just like we always did after a long day. The mood was light. She was laughing at some silly story I told about work, and everything felt normal. Too normal. Little did I know, the woman I had been married to for nearly a decade was hiding something big, something that would shatter everything I thought I knew about our life together. We'd always been comfortable, you know? No major issues, no real fights, at least not ones that lasted. Tracy had her quirks, but she was a good wife. I mean, sure, there were those moments when I'd catch her staring off into space like she was thinking about something she didn't want to share, but I chalked it up to stress from her job. She worked in a high-pressure environment, so I figured that was normal. But that night I noticed something odd. She was acting off. She was distracted, glancing at her phone every few minutes like she was waiting for a text. Normally, Tracy was glued to her phone, but she was always open about it. She'd laugh at a message or show me something funny. But tonight, she was just scrolling, her face tense like she was reading something she didn't want me to see. I didn't say anything at first. I figured it was just work stuff. It was when she went to the bathroom that things took a turn. I was cleaning up the dishes, and as I was wiping down the counter, something caught my eye. Her purse was slightly open, and the strap had fallen onto the floor. I almost let it go, but some gut feeling, made me look inside. And that's when I saw it. A bra. A lacy, red bra, one I didn't recognize. Now, I'm not a guy who goes snooping through his wife's things, but this felt different. This felt like the kind of thing you don't just ignore. My heart started racing as I slowly pulled it out of her purse. The moment I did, my mind started going a million miles an hour. Was it hers? I mean, sure, she had a lot of lingerie, but this? This didn't feel like one she'd wear. The red color felt too flashy, too bold. It was like something you'd wear for a special occasion, not a Tuesday night at home. I shoved it back in the purse just as Tracy came out of the bathroom, and my mind was already spiraling. I tried to play it cool, but I couldn't shake the thought. Was she seeing someone? Had she been hiding something from me for who knows how long? I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe it was nothing, right? Maybe I was just overthinking. But deep down I knew something was wrong. The rest of the night was a blur. Tracy didn't seem any different, but I couldn't stop looking at her. Every word she said, every little movement felt like a lie. I tried to convince myself that I was imagining things. But then I thought about her work, about how she had been so distant lately. How she'd started going to late meetings more often. And when I remembered the look on her face when she came out of that bathroom, guilty like she knew I knew something, my stomach twisted. I didn't know it yet, but that night was the beginning of unraveling a truth I never thought I'd have to face. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but the whole bra incident kept gnawing at me. I couldn't shake it. I mean, yeah, I knew Tracy had a lot of things going on at work, and maybe she was just stressed out. But then, the heart attack happened. I still can't believe how suddenly everything changed. It was a Thursday night, a couple of days after I found the bra, and I was home early for once. Tracy had been out for most of the day as usual, working late on some project. I wasn't complaining, she was always so driven and I admired that. But like I said, something didn't feel right. And when the phone rang and it was Tracy's boss, Jack, calling me instead of her. That's when everything started to unravel. Jack was a good guy. We had met a few times at company events, and I always thought he was decent. But when he called, his voice sounded off. He said Tracy had stepped out of a meeting and he needed me to know something. Jack was having a heart attack. He was in the hospital, and Tracy had rushed him there after she found him collapsed at his desk. My first thought? Shock. Complete shock. Tracy was with him? It didn't make sense. She'd never mentioned Jack being in any danger. She didn't even tell me that he'd been feeling sick or anything. So why was she the one driving him to the hospital in the middle of the day? And why had she stayed with him afterward, sending me a brief text saying, "I'm staying here with Jack. Don't worry about me." I brushed it off, trying to convince myself it was just an emergency, that she was only being a good coworker. But deep down I felt this cold pit in my stomach. The timing of everything was too strange. Why hadn't she mentioned anything about Jack being sick? Why had she stayed at the hospital without calling me for updates? I understood that Jack was her boss, but he was married with kids. Tracy and Jack weren't exactly close outside of work. This felt weird. I tried to stay calm and not jump to any conclusions. But that night when Tracy came home, her eyes red, her face exhausted, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was hiding something. She hugged me tightly, but it wasn't the same. She was distant, and I noticed the way she kept glancing at her phone. I tried to talk to her about it, about how worried I was, but she kept brushing me off. "I'm fine, Kyle," she said. "It's just been a long day." But something in her tone didn't sit right. She was avoiding my questions, like she didn't want to talk about it. And then, just before bed, I noticed it. The same uneasy look on her face that I saw when she was scrolling through her phone earlier that week. Was she hiding something from me? Was it just my imagination, or had she really changed? The next day, I found a text on her phone. It was from Jack. It was short, just a "Thank you for staying with me, Tracy. I appreciate everything you've done." And then, as if on instinct, I scrolled up through the messages, a sick feeling creeping in. The texts were cordial at first, but then they turned more personal. "You're such a lifesaver," Jack wrote. "I don't know what I'd do without you." There it was again, too personal. Way too personal for just a boss and his employee. I don't know why I didn't confront her then. Maybe I was scared, or maybe I was still hoping I was just being paranoid. But at that moment something shifted in me. The woman I thought I knew wasn't the same anymore. Tracy wasn't the Tracy I married. She wasn't the woman who would have told me everything. She was hiding something, and I was starting to realize I didn't know her as well as I thought I did. I didn't know where this was headed, but I knew one thing for sure: I couldn't ignore this feeling anymore. Something was definitely wrong. The next few days felt like I was walking on eggshells. Tracy was acting like everything was fine, but I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was seriously off. I tried to ignore it, but then I found something else that made my blood run cold. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I was helping Tracy organize her things for the week ahead. She was busy with laundry, so I took the chance to grab her purse to look for some paperwork she mentioned. I didn't even expect to find anything, but there it was, a receipt. A receipt for a hotel in the city. The date on it? Just a few days before Jack's heart attack. I froze. Why was Tracy at a hotel? She never mentioned it. She always told me everything, but now? I didn't even know what to think. I quickly stuffed the receipt back in her purse, my heart pounding. When she came back into the room, I acted normal, but my mind was racing. I tried to dismiss it, thinking I was overthinking things again. But then I started wondering. Could she have been with Jack? Had she stayed the night with him in a hotel? That's when the doubt really started to sink in. I couldn't take it anymore. The doubts, the suspicions, they were eating me alive. I had to confront her, even if it meant everything could blow up. That night, when Tracy got home from work, I could feel the tension in the air. I waited until we were sitting down for dinner. My hands were shaking as I set the table, and I could tell Tracy noticed. "Kyle, what's going on? You've been acting distant," she asked, clearly irritated. I took a deep breath. "I need to ask you something, Tracy. I need you to be honest with me." She looked at me, her face twisting with concern. "What is it? You're scaring me." I didn't beat around the bush. "Why was there a receipt for a hotel in your purse? And why didn't you tell me about it?" Her face went pale, but she recovered quickly. "What? You went through my purse?" she snapped, her voice sharp. I nodded, my voice steady but cold. "Yes, I did. And I need answers. Was it Jack? Did you stay with him at that hotel?" She froze for a moment, the silence hanging heavy between us. Then she scoffed, trying to deflect. "You're really making a big deal out of nothing, Kyle. It was just a business thing. I stayed there for work, and you know that. You're overreacting." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the words felt hollow, and I saw the guilt in her eyes. I couldn't shake it. "I'm not stupid, Tracy. I said, my voice breaking. You've been hiding things from me. This isn't just about a hotel receipt anymore. What's really going on? She looked away, and for a moment I saw a flicker of something. Fear, maybe regret, maybe something else. But she quickly masked it with anger. You're being paranoid. I don't owe you an explanation for everything I do. I could feel the walls between us growing higher. I wasn't getting the truth. And deep down I knew I might never get it from her. The confrontation left me with more questions than answers. Tracy was cold, defensive, and shut down anything I tried to ask. That night, I lay in bed wide awake, replaying every moment in my head. My gut told me something was off, but the silence was deafening. Then, the next day, something unexpected happened. Tracy wasn't home when I woke up. She'd left early for work, which wasn't unusual, but when I checked my phone, there was a message from a number I didn't recognize. Hey, it's Jack. I need to talk to you. Please call me when you get a chance. My stomach twisted. I never thought I'd be hearing from Jack. My immediate thought was that he was reaching out about the heart attack, about something work-related. But deep down I knew it had to be more than that. I hesitated for a moment, but then I dialed his number. Jack picked up almost immediately. Kyle? He asked, sounding strained. Listen, I don't know how to say this, but Tracy and we've been seeing each other. It's been going on for a while now. My heart stopped. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What? You've been with my wife? All this time? Jack's voice cracked. I never meant for it to go this far. But it has, and I think you deserve to know. Tracy's been hiding it from you, from everyone. I felt like the ground was slipping out from under me. All the suspicions, all the hints, it was all true. Tracy had been cheating on me with her boss, and I had no idea that. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, the words Jack had just said echoing in my mind. It was like a punch to the gut, and I couldn't breathe. You've got to be kidding me, I muttered, barely able to get the words out. Jack continued, his voice apologetic but desperate. I didn't want it to happen like this, Kyle. I care about Tracy and she cares about me. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, but it wasn't. And I know this is hard for you to hear, but I can't keep this from you anymore. I owe you the truth. I didn't know what to say. All the pieces were falling into place, but it didn't make any sense. Tracy, my wife, the woman I trusted, had been lying to me for who knows how long, sneaking around behind my back. She had been with Jack, and I was too blind to see it. I hung up the phone without saying another word. My hands were shaking as I sat there, staring at the walls. I couldn't even process what had just happened. Jack was right. Tracy had been hiding it from me for months, and now it was out in the open. But I still didn't know the full story. How long had this been going on? Had I really been that oblivious? A part of me wanted to go straight to Tracy, confront her, demand the truth. But another part of me knew that if I did, I wouldn't be able to hold it together. The hurt, the betrayal, I wasn't ready to face her just yet. But I knew I couldn't wait forever. I needed answers. I needed the truth. And soon I'd get it, one way or another. The whole day felt like a blur. I couldn't focus on anything. Every time I tried to calm down or think logically, all I could hear was Jack's voice telling me how Tracy had been seeing him behind my back. The betrayal was suffocating. That evening, Tracy came home looking just as she always did, brisk, tired, like nothing had changed. But I knew everything had changed. I wasn't going to let this slide. When she walked in, I didn't even wait for her to take her coat off. I just said it. So, Tracy, I talked to Jack today. Her eyes widened for a second, and I saw the blood drain from her face. Kyle, what are you talking about? She looked nervous but tried to brush it off. Jack? Why are you bringing him up? I took a deep breath, trying to stay composed. Don't lie to me anymore. He told me everything. About you too. Her face shifted, her lips pressing into a thin line. There was no denying it now. Kyle, No, stop, I cut her off. I know about the hotel. I know about the affair. How long, Tracy? How long has this been going on? She shook her head, and I could see the guilt in her eyes. She knew she was caught. I didn't mean for it to happen, Kyle. It just did. I didn't plan for any of this. I laughed bitterly, the hurt building up inside me. You didn't plan? Really? All those late nights, all the secrets? And you think I'm supposed to believe that? You betrayed me, Tracy. Her eyes welled up with tears, but I was past caring. You lied to my face. You made me look like a fool. Why, Tracy? Why him? Why Jack? She choked on her words, her voice trembling. I don't know. I didn't feel close to you anymore. I felt alone. And Jack, he was there. He understood me. The pain hit harder than anything I'd felt before. So that was it? You just replaced me with him? I never meant to hurt you, Kyle, she whispered. It wasn't like that. I was just confused. And when he was there for me, it just happened. I couldn't look at her. I couldn't even stand to be in the same room. I grabbed my jacket, stormed out of the house. I didn't know where I was going, but I had to get away from her. I needed space to breathe, to think. And maybe, just maybe, to figure out how I was going to pick up the pieces of my life. I spent the night at a friend's place, not really talking much, just trying to get my head on straight. I couldn't wrap my mind around what had happened. Tracy had broken me in ways I didn't even know were possible. It wasn't just the affair, it was the lies, the deception, the years I spent trusting someone who was hiding something this big. The next morning I got a text from Tracy. We need to talk. Please come home. I wanted to ignore it, to leave it all behind. But something in me knew I had to face it. I couldn't avoid the mess forever. I drove back to the house, my stomach a knot of dread. When I walked in, Tracy was sitting on the couch, looking like a completely different person, vulnerable, regretful, but still distant in a way I couldn't explain. Her eyes were red from crying, but she didn't say anything at first. I stood there, not sure what to do, how to feel. I don't know what to say to you, I finally said, my voice flat. You tore this apart, Tracy. I don't even recognize you anymore. She flinched at my words, but I couldn't hold back. How could you do this? How long was it going on? Why didn't you just tell me if something was wrong? I didn't know how to, she whispered, her voice cracking. I didn't know how to tell you. I felt like I was losing myself. Like you didn't see me anymore. Jack, he made me feel important again. My chest tightened. I didn't know what was worse, her betrayal or hearing her justify it like it was just a mistake. You think I didn't see you? I asked, almost laughing, though it wasn't funny at all. I've been here, Tracy. I've been here for everything. And now you tell me it was Jack who saw you? That's not love. She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I couldn't let her touch me. You ruined us, I said, my voice shaking. I don't know if I can ever forgive you. She broke down then, her tears flooding out, but I couldn't find it in me to feel sorry for her. Not now. Not after everything. The silence hung heavy between us, but there was no going back. Tracy's betrayal had created a chasm I wasn't sure could ever be bridged. And now I had to figure out what came next. The days after the confrontation felt like I was walking through a fog. Tracy kept calling, texting, trying to apologize, but it all felt empty. She was sorry, but not sorry enough to stop seeing Jack. It was clear that she still had feelings for him, and honestly, I couldn't stomach it anymore. I spent the weekend in a haze, replaying everything in my head, every late night, every little moment that felt off. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. I couldn't stay in this marriage. Not when the trust was shattered beyond repair. Not when she had chosen someone else. So, I did what I had to do. I packed a bag, called a lawyer, and started the process of separating. It wasn't easy, but I had to be strong. I couldn't keep living in a house that felt like a reminder of everything I had lost. Tracy and I talked one last time, and when she saw that I was serious, that I wasn't going to forgive her this time, she finally broke down completely. I never wanted this, Kyle. I never meant to hurt you, she sobbed, her voice raw. But I made my choice, and I don't know how to fix it. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much she destroyed me, how much she'd ruined the life I thought I had. But instead I just nodded, holding back the tears. You can't fix it. It's done. And just like that, the last of the illusions I had about us disappeared. There was no going back, and as much as it hurt, I knew it was the right choice. I couldn't stay in a relationship built on lies. I walked out of that house for the last time with a heavy heart but a clear mind. Tracy had made her choice, and now it was my turn to make mine, to move on, to rebuild, and to never let myself get trapped in that kind of betrayal again. The weeks that followed felt like I was navigating a completely different life. I was living in a small apartment now, away from the memories, the lies, the woman I once loved. It was quiet, too quiet at first. And then the noise came in waves. I didn't hear from Tracy for a few days after I left. But then the messages started coming in again, her apologies, her pleas for me to come back. She couldn't stop talking about how much she regretted it, how much she missed me. But it was too late. The damage was done. One evening I was sitting on the couch, just trying to relax after a long day, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Tracy. I need to see you. Please. I can't live with myself knowing what I've done to you. Please, just let me explain. Part of me wanted to see her, to hear her beg for forgiveness, maybe feel that spark of the old love that once existed. But the other part of me, the part that had been broken by everything she did, that part told me not to respond. But I couldn't stop myself. I agreed to meet her. Not because I thought we could fix anything, but because I needed closure. I needed to hear her say the things I hadn't yet heard, how sorry she really was, or whether it was all just more manipulation. When we met, Tracy was a mess. Her eyes were swollen from crying, her hair a mess like she hadn't cared about anything for days. She looked empty. Like the life had been drained out of her. Kyle, she started, her voice cracking. I raised a hand to stop her. Don't. I'm not here for an apology anymore, Tracy. It's too late for that. She looked down, her shoulders slumping, as if everything I said had taken whatever hope she had left. I know, she whispered. I know I lost you. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. But I need you to know that I was never happy with myself. And I wasn't honest with you or with me. That was the hardest part for me to hear, because I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that we could have worked through it, but I knew deep down I couldn't trust her again. I can't go back, Tracy. You chose Jack. And even if you never meant for it to happen, it did. And I can't just forget that. She nodded silently, tears welling up in her eyes again. But this time I didn't feel sorry for her. I felt empty. I wasn't angry. I wasn't devastated. I was just done. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said, standing up and walking away without looking back. That was the last time I saw her. And that was the beginning of me truly moving on. It's been a few months since that day. The weight of it all still lingers, but it doesn't crush me anymore. I've started to rebuild my life in a way I didn't think was possible back then. I still think about Tracy sometimes, about the life we had, the memories that felt real for so long. But I've learned to let go piece by piece. I've been focusing on myself more. I've thrown myself into my work, started picking up old hobbies I forgot about, and even reconnected with friends I'd neglected. There are days when the loneliness hits, when I realize how much I miss the comfort of having someone to share my life with. But I know now that I'd rather be alone than in a relationship built on lies. The hardest part has been letting go of the idea that I failed. That somehow I wasn't enough for her. But every day I remind myself that her choices were her own, and there's nothing I could have done to change that. As for Tracy, I haven't heard from her in weeks. I don't know where she is or what she's doing. Honestly, I don't care anymore. I'm not angry at her anymore either. There's no point. She made her choices and now I'm making mine. It's not easy, and there are days when I still want answers, still want to understand why everything fell apart the way it did. But those questions are fading now. What matters is that I'm moving forward. I'm figuring out who I am without her. And for the first time in a long time I feel like I'm starting to live again, free of the past, free of the betrayal, free of her. I'm not sure where life will take me, but I know I'm stronger for having walked away,